In our 3D visualization demonstration, we'll start by creating a stepped surface or prism map, and then we'll recreate a 3D photorealistic visualization of downtown San Diego. And last, we'll close by constructing a fly-through of downtown San Diego. In step one, we'll set up our global scene demo. First, you'll open a new ArcGIS Pro global scene named demo_4-3 in your demo folder. Then you'll add a database connection to the ACC GIS Intermediate Demo Data File Geodatabase. And last, you'll add the county's feature class from the Texas feature dataset to your new global scene. We'll start on Windows Desktop, where I'll open up ArcGIS Pro. This time, when the opening screen opens up, I'm going to click on New Global Scene to create a new project with a global scene. Go ahead and browse to your course folder for the location. And inside your course folder, your demos folder, go ahead and click OK. I'm going to rename my new ArcGIS Pro project demo_4-3 and go ahead and let it create a folder for this local project and click OK. That opens up ArcGIS Pro with my new global scene. Go ahead and maximize ArcGIS Pro. Now I need to add my intermediate demo data geodatabase. I'm going to right click on the database section and click add database in catalog pane, and then browse to my demo data geodatabase, select it and click OK. Once I've added the geodatabase, I can expand the geodatabase and the Texas feature dataset, locate the county's feature class and right click on it and select add to current map. That adds the county's feature layer to my scene in the contents pane under 3D layers. In step two, we'll navigate our scene and configure the properties. First, we'll use the Explore tool and mouse to frame our perspective scene of Texas. Then we'll drag the counties from 2D layers to 3D layers and note the Z-fighting that is occurring in our scene. And last, we'll activate the view ribbon and click depth priority to open the depth priority window and set the county's priority to 1 to resolve any Z-fighting in our scene. Back in ArcGIS Pro, I need to activate the map ribbon and make sure the Explore button is enabled. And then now I'm going to update the perspective for my scene. Notice the Z-fighting that happens out in the western part of the state. And if I move the counties down to the 2D layers, that resolves the issue because it drapes the counties on top of the ground. But in this case, the layers are going to be 3D layer because we're going to extrude them. So we need to resolve the Z-fighting that is occurring. If I zoom in on my scene, you can see it there out in West Texas. So to resolve the Z-fighting, I need to activate the view ribbon. And then in the scene group, click on the depth priority button. And that opens up the depth priority. And I just need to set counties to 1 and click OK. So now they're the highest priority, and that resolves any Z-fighting that's occurring in my scene. All right, make sure that you have Texas positioned the way that you want. Go ahead and reset your interface and save your ArcGIS Pro project. In step 3, we'll create a 3D step surface map of Texas counties by total crop acreage and symbolized by the total number of farms. We'll begin by extruding the counties from base height using the crop acre 07 field by feet. Then we'll symbolize the extruded counties by the number of farms in 2007 by graduated color with the green to blue color scheme. Last, we'll turn off all 2D layers and ground and use the Explore tool to frame Texas and our 3D step surface map. Back in ArcGIS Pro, in the Contents pane, I'm going to right-click on the Counties feature layer and select Attribute Table. And if we scroll the table view all the way to the far right, we can see the fields we're going to be using to make our step surface map, including the total crop acres in 2007 and the total number of farms in 2007. Go ahead and close the table view. And now with the county's feature layer still selected, I'm going to click on the context sensitive feature layer ribbon, and then under extrusion, click on the extrusion type dropdown and select base height. Now I need to enter in the values by which I'll be extruding. So I'm going to click on the field dropdown, scroll it all the way down, and we're going to extrude by crop acres in 2007. And go ahead and switch the unit to feet so the extruded polygons are visible in the view. All right, now we want to symbolize by the total number of farms. So I'm going to click on the symbology dropdown and select graduated colors. And for the field, we're going to switch it from object ID and scroll all the way down to the total number of farms in 2007. Go ahead and close the symbology pane. And I'm going to pin my catalog back so I have my entire scene and reposition my scene. I want to improve my visual hierarchy, so I'm going to turn off the topographic map, world hillshade, and world elevation, and then reposition my map. All right, so there you can see my completed stepped surface map with my bivariate symbology that shows crops and number of farms. And I can see there are small farms, but not a lot of crops in central Texas. And then there are not a lot of farms, but a lot of crops in the panhandle. Go ahead and reset your interface and save your ArcGIS Pro project. In step 4, we'll transition our demonstration from making a 3D stepped surface global scene to making a 3D photorealistic local scene. We'll begin by renaming the global scene as Texas 3D stepped surface map, and then insert a new local scene and rename it as San Diego 3D flyover. Last, we'll add the building models with textures, multi-patch feature class, and the trees point feature class to the local scene. Back in ArcGIS Pro, I'm going to go ahead and rename our global scene. In the contents pane, I'm going to click it once and once again, and then rename it as Texas 3D stepped surface map. And then activate the insert ribbon and click on the new map dropdown and select new local scene. Also want to rename our new local scene. So I'm going to click it in the contents pane once and then once again. And we'll rename it as San Diego 3D flyover. Now we need to add some data to our global scene. So I'm going to expand the catalog pane and expand the San Diego feature dataset in our demo data geodatabase. Right click building models with textures and select add to current map. That's going to add the multi-patch feature class of the building models with textures for downtown San Diego to our new local scene. And it takes a minute to both center the scene and draw the multi-patch features with textures. Go ahead and center my scene. I also want to add our trees point feature class from the San Diego feature dataset as well. Now notice that in the contents pane, the multi-patch features add as 3D layers and the point feature class adds as 2D layers. All right, go ahead and reset your interface and save your ArcGIS Pro project. In step 5, we'll symbolize the 3D trees. First, in the contents pane, we'll drag the trees feature layer from 2D to 3D layers, and then we'll open the layer properties and enable display 3D symbols in real world units. Next, we'll symbolize trees with the photorealistic California bay tree that's found listed in the symbol gallery under 3D vegetation realistic. And last, we'll vary the symbology for the trees by attribute using random rotation and size. Back in ArcGIS Pro in the Contents pane, I'm going to select the trees feature layer and drag it from the 2D layers group to the 3D layers group. And that's going to draw the tree symbology with 3D symbols. Now I'm going to right click the trees feature layer and click on properties to open up the layer properties, and then under display section, under display symbols and scene, I'll select real world units and click OK. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and let that draw in my local scene, and then I want to zoom in on the waterfront in front of the convention center. There we go. And you can see my 3D symbols. And if I drag trees back down to 2D layers, you'll see it'll symbolize with 2D symbols that are draped on the ground. And then drag it back up to 3D layers and drop it, and it symbolizes with 3D symbols. Now I want to customize my symbology. So I'll activate the feature layer ribbon and click on the symbology button. And then in the primary symbology pane, I want to click on the symbol patch. And in the gallery panel, I'm going to search for trees. And I want to collapse the low poly trees and select a tree from the 3D vegetation realistic group. And I'm looking for California Bay. There, I see it right there. Go ahead and click on California Bay. And that draws my trees with a California Bay photorealistic symbol. Now, it doesn't look very natural. All the trees are the exact same height and rotation, and also they're really large when compared to the building down there. So back in the symbology pane, I'll click back and then switch the panel from primary symbology to vary symbology by attribute, and then expand the rotation section. And I'm going to rotate either by a field, or in this case, we're going to do it randomly. So I'm going to click on the Direction Z dropdown and select random, and watch. That takes the uniform nature of my trees and kind of distributes them, makes them look a little more natural. And I want to do the same thing with my size. So I'm going to expand the size section, and under the field, select random. And now it's looking much more natural, but of course a little overforested. That's because my trees, the maximum is over 150 feet. So I'm going to switch that to 25 meters. Go ahead and close my symbology pane. Now my trees have a much more natural photorealistic presentation. Go ahead and reset your ArcGIS Pro interface and save your ArcGIS Pro project. Now that we've symbolized our trees, in step 6, we'll configure our scene. We'll begin by opening the map properties and setting the background, shadows, and altitude properties. Then we'll switch the base map to imagery and rotate the scene to view the colored horizon. Last, we'll save our ArcGIS Pro project and the changes to our local scene. Back in ArcGIS Pro, in the Contents pane, I'm going to right-click on the scene and select Properties. This opens up the Map Properties window, and then under General, I want to set my background color to a light blue. And now I want to switch to the Illumination section. And under Shadow, check Display Shadows in 3D. And then now I want to move my sun from directly overhead, where there's not a lot of good shadows, to maybe 60 degrees, which is a little bit later in the evening. And go ahead and click OK. Now watch as my scene redraws. You'll see the impact of the changes on the scene properties, including the illuminated scene with a little bit lower sun, as well as my buildings and trees with the shadows. All right, that looks really great. I want to update my base map to create a more photorealistic scene. So on the map ribbon, I'm going to click on base map dropdown and select imagery. And there you can see I have a really great photorealistic scene. Let's go ahead and reposition the scene so we can see our background color on the horizon. There you can see the light blue that we selected. That looks really great. Go ahead and reset your ArcGIS Pro interface and save your ArcGIS Pro project.